Before we get into the episode, I just want to say a heartfelt message to the family of Del Wilkes the Patriot. Now, I got to share an episode with Del Wilkes the Patriot, and it was an incredible afternoon, evening that I spent with Del last August. A fantastic episode. A guy I idolised as a kid when he was tagging with Marcus Bagwell, as we would go on to know him as Buff, then in WCW, onto WWF, and going into a feud with Brett. And had Del not got injured, that feud would have gone longer. I know Brett obviously went on to leave to go to WCW in the November-December time, but yeah, it was just that feud had legs, and what a humble man Del was. Nothing was ever a problem. I messaged him various times over the last 12 months, asking his opinion on my show, just general stuff, just making sure he was okay, the family were good, just the stuff that you do. And every time he'd get back to me, and just a lovely man, had his views on life, but he'd take on the views of others as well. So, as I say, before we get into it, I just wanted to say R.I.P. to Del Wilkes, the Patriot, Godspeed, and I send all my thoughts to the family at this tough time.
You're listening to Stu's Wrestling Podcast. It's time for British Wrestling's sharpshooter, your host, Stu Palmer.
I just got this feeling that I've never ever had. Who am I believing? Can you tell me again? Who
We are back to the UK for episode 88. I've been in America for some time the last few episodes, so it's great to be back on home soil to talk to veteran Too Cruel Tyson Taylor. Tyson was trained by legends of UK wrestling Dean Allmark and Robbie Dynamite way back in 2008, but it then took 3 years, as you'll get to hear from him, to get on his first show, for him to feel he was ready to showcase his talents on the UK circuit. Tyson Taylor has wrestled for All-Star Brian Dixon's company, which we've known in the UK for so many years. Lots of experience. He's got a lot of tips for guys as well, because he's seen guys come and go within the industry. Guys that couldn't hack, setting up the rings, all the stuff that goes with it. These performers, these guys, they don't just go in there to wrestle. You've got to do all sorts of stuff when you're at the shows. It's intense with the All-Star shows as well, because you can have up to 3 shows a day, as Tyson talks about. He's also due to take on Sheikh El Sham, the Middle Eastern millionaire, for SWW, a promotion out of the UK too. So we get to hear about some current stuff. Shows are coming back now as the pandemic loosens and lessens. So my guest, without further ado, for episode 88 of Stu's Wrestling Podcast is Too Cruel Tyson Taylor. Enjoy. My guest today, all the way from Birkenhead on the Wirral, it is none other than an 11-year veteran on the pro wrestling circuit, Tyson Taylor. How's it going, mate?
Oh, it's great, yeah. At the moment, yeah, it's really good, especially with everything, the shows starting to come out. You start to see pictures of people, doing shows and stuff like that. So, it's exciting at the moment.
The buzz is back. The buzz is back.
Yeah, you can feel it online and everything now with people posting stuff. And it's starting to get me excited now, when I'm going to start doing them as well. So, yeah.
Could you tell the listeners and viewers your schedule, maybe a few of the shows that you are going to be on upcoming?
Well, so probably from next weekend, I am literally fully booked till about September. And then realistically, if things go ahead and things start opening back up, I'm sure that's probably there's going to be more shows starting to be added and stuff like that now, once everyone knows what's happening with things opening back up. But which I'll take any at the moment. But it's so from literally next week onwards, I'm just literally fully booked, which has been great, because I've always looked at because I've got a little diary where I write everything in. It's just been page after page of just nothing. And then now it's starting to come to the point where I'm starting to fill it all in, and I'm filling my phone calendar in and stuff like that. So it's starting to look busy now.
Is there anybody on a list that you haven't faced yet that you're wanting to get in there with and pit your wits against?
Well, I'm trying to think of people on the independents. I'm looking forward to the Sheikh El Sham one, for SWW, I feel as though we know each other and we're friends, and we've only been in the ring like once, but we had really good chemistry. So I feel as though once that match, once we start that match, I reckon that's going to turn a few heads.
That's amazing. That's amazing. Yeah, I had Shake on recently. We had a good chat. So I'm sure you're throwing down the gauntlet there, Tyson.
Oh yeah, definitely. Yeah, 100%.
So going to be some stiff shots or what?
Oh, 100%. Yeah, it's got to be. Battle of the heavyweights in it, so it's yeah.
I look forward to seeing that one, even if it's in video form. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
I'll be looking out for that one. Absolutely.
Yeah, that's the one I'm looking ahead for.
I think now we can go right back. Now, you started training in 2008 with Dean Allmark and Robbie Dynamite.
Yeah.
So, yeah, how did you get to know about the school and training and stuff like that? How did you get to know about that back then?
Well, I didn't know that. Obviously, I remember there was wrestling on when I was. It probably was before I was born, but you always get like the hearing of like, oh, wrestling was on a Saturday or a Sunday, and the world used to stop at 4:00 and stuff like that to watch the wrestling. And I'd seen like videos of it and stuff like that, but I didn't realize it was Brian Dixon. It was just wrestling on the telly, and then it was only when someone said, well, it's only when I'd started the school that I really realized. So I didn't realize he lived on the Wirral. So it kind of makes sense that he had a school on the Wirral. And it was only when because me and my mates, we loved wrestling. I remember I was just 18, something like that. And I was driving, and it was in this old, like, it's like a swimming bath sort of thing, like a sports leisure centre, but just think about a sports leisure centre back in like the 70s and 80s, this place was falling apart. It probably looked nice back in like the 60s and 50s when it was built, but now it was just like falling apart. And I just drove past, and it had this big like canvas sign, and it had like a picture of another guy giving another guy a German, like, but they were dressed in like amateur gear. So it just said wrestling training here. So I said, oh, do you know what? I said to my mate, oh, we should go. And I honestly thought, judging by the poster, it was just like amateur wrestling.
Yeah.
So it was like, and in my mind, I was like, well, Kurt Angle started at amateur wrestling, so I'll do that. So I pestered me mate to come, and he didn't go in the end. And then in the end, he said, Joe, I'm just going to go on my own. So I walk into like this really dingy building and said, oh, the wrestling. And to the receptionist, he said, oh, yeah, it's, down the hallway, and you just go down this really, steep hallway, and it's, it smells, and there's paint falling off the walls and everything. And then I just opened the door, and I just thought it was just going to be mats or something, it was just, and then it was just there's a ring in there, like a massive ring. And then it was only when I went, oh, do you know what? This actually might be like proper wrestling, like all the wrestling that I wanted it to be. And then there was Dean and Robbie Dynamite just training. And so the first day I didn't train. I just went to go and have a look. And I was going to stay there for like most of the day and just watch, but I could only sit there for 5-10 minutes because I was that excited to get in. And I just kept kicking myself going, I should have just started training today. Why did they just come and watch? Because now I want to get in there. So after like 10 minutes, I was just like, oh, I can't do this. I'll say thank you and I'll come back next week. So in the end, I went away, and he said, oh, get some knee pads, and if you can find some boots and stuff like that. And funnily enough, there was another student in there, and he was selling some boots, and I mean, they were falling apart. He said, you can have them for $5 if you want. I said, fine, yeah. So I bought my first pair of wrestling boots the first day I trained, and they cost me $5, and I had to get a load of duct tape to keep because the sole was like flapping on the, so we had to tape that up, and every so often I'd have to just keep taping that up, and then I just kept them I don't even know, they're probably around somewhere. I should have kept them, but yeah, they were my first wrestling boots. And then my first knee pads was rollerblading knee pads. They're the only ones I could find, and they had like a big plastic like cover on the front of it. I thought, imagine dropping a knee on someone with them, it would have killed. So yeah, and that was it then, and then I was just away with it then.
It's amazing. Hey, they could be heirlooms, Tyson.
I know, yeah, that's
your boots,
yeah.
your boots and your pads. You know what I mean? It's
Yeah, well, I've got all my old, like, you know, my old ring jackets and my old, like, singlets and stuff like that. I'm going to keep them, and then, you know, you just never know. One day, you know, another man's trash is another man's treasure, isn't it?
So, wise words, good words there. How was it initially, you know, grasping it? Did you take to it quite quickly? Obviously, you were there with Dean and Robbie.
Yeah.
Did it come quite easy to you initially, grasping it?
No, I couldn't have been more further from what I knew. Like, I knew how to hook like suplexes and stuff like that. But back then, I was 18. I was really overweight. I didn't exercise or anything like that. So they probably must have looked at me and gone, you know, is not much and thinking much of me. And then at the same time, I was finding it hard to sort of grasp things. You know, I mean, like, you could do the suplexes and the slams. It was more like the movements and stuff like that I couldn't really understand. And then, you know, the psychology part of the whole thing, you know, I wasn't getting. So you get these people who probably like, oh, you know, I had 6 months training and I started wrestling. It literally took me about 3 years before I even got my first match. I was doing refereeing and stuff like that, but it was more along the lines of I wasn't that good, but we had a lot of students who were good enough to be on shows. So I was like, you know, 4 or 5 or 6 down the line to be picked. So you had like, there was Ben Levy, there was Adam, who was Lightning Kid. You had Luke Hardy. There was a guy called TNT. He was a student, and that was it. Yeah, and then there was you know, you had like, there was another one called John, and he would do shows on Andy Anderson, and he did. Unfortunately, none of them do it anymore. But they were like, they had been there a while, and they had got it. So they were getting on shows. So I was just completely down at the bottom of the list. And it was very hard to get, because they weren't going to say no to that opportunity. So if they were going to ask what the top person that they wanted and they couldn't do it, they got another 4 people before they got to me. So, and it never ever trickled down to me until about 3 years in.
That's mad though as well that you're saying about them people not in the business anymore. I think that's testament to you now, you know, currently how long you've been doing it. And I think what I take away from what you were saying was that, you know, you got to bite down, haven't you, and go for it and stick to it. I think that you can attribute that to anything in life, can't you? Not just wrestling. That's what I take away from what you were saying there.
Oh yeah, 100%. And it didn't bother me that I didn't know what I was doing or that I was finding it hard, because at the end of the day, it was like, well, if I stay long enough, I'm bound to pick this up. So it's not like anyone. I mean, there was friendly rivalries in the school, because obviously there's only one spot for the students, even if that, you know, it was very. There wouldn't be more than like 2 trainees on a show. That was probably because they were tagging. So it was basically one of those things. Is I just thought I just need to keep grinding at this and just keep going. And I kind of like the rivalry with everyone. I kind of like having that competition, because it was like politics in the wrestling school, just like there is in a locker room. That's just how everyone was. Everyone wanted to be on that card, and everyone was willing to do anything. And, you know, if you do something wrong, they'd be the first to point it out, because they point out what you're doing wrong, you know, it makes them look good. And if, as you can see with Dean and Dynamite being the 2 people who were training, the training good. These trainees were good. Like, I would love to have seen how they turned out now. Some of them stayed in the business for, you know, 5, 6, 7 years, and they got really good. And then just things happen, you know, in life. You have like other things that come along. But yeah, it wasn't like they were just picking any trainees. They had good trainees there. So when I come along, they weren't going to throw me a bone anytime soon. It was a case of, right, you need to get to their level before we're even going to consider you.
It's incredible to think, you know, getting up to a level. Absolutely. With Dean and Robbie, what did you take away from them, you know, in terms of what they were training you? How do they differ? What were you getting from Dean, and what, you know, separately, what were you getting from Robbie in terms of, you know, the ground, the base of your style and stuff like that.
Well, so it's kind of like a perfect. It's like the yin and the yang, isn't it? That's how Dynamite and Dean was, because the stuff that Dean's teaching you like the high flying, flashy stuff, and then Dynamite's teaching you that gritty. It was all amateur based wrestling. So you had the technical side with Dynamite, and then you had the flashy side with Dean. But Dean also knew the technical side of things. And he had his own little flair of how he would do technical stuff with his style. And then Dynamite knew how he could be flashy in his own way. So he's being flashy in the technical side. So it was just this perfect like combination of people. So you'd have your morning with Dynamite, which would be basically just like, your rolls and all stuff like that. And then you'd start doing your chain wrestling and stuff like that with him. And that was on the mat. So everything was bumped on mats. And I mean, they were nice mats. People, we bump in the ring now, if we were training, but we were doing suplexes and backdrops and stuff on these mats because they wanted to say, like, right, once you've gone in there, you'll appreciate how it feels in there. So just for the whole morning, we were just bumping and rolling and doing somersault bumps and face bumps and backdrops and suplexes and slams all on the mats. And then in the afternoon, if your body wasn't broken enough already, you'd get in, and that's when you'd start, putting it all in and putting it in a ring then.
It's mad as well. I hear guys, I've heard guys over the years, I couldn't do what you do. This is why I respect and look up to you guys doing the wrestling. Some people think it's easy, don't they? And then I've seen it time and time again when you've seen stuff on documentaries and things of that nature. A crucial thing was cardio, wasn't it?
Yeah.
People not having the engine. Yeah, you can have the moves. So yeah, just a bit on that, the cardio side and stuff like that. Advice maybe and tips to guys that fancy having a go.
Well, see now that we're coming back to all the shows and that, we've been training a little bit, just we're not doing bumping or anything. It's just trying to get our cardio up. So it's literally just drills. So we're just drilling for just 2 hours, just doing different drills in the ring because we know how to bump and stuff like that, but it's our wind that we need to get going. And I feel as though with like young people now is you can have bad wind, or you can have you don't have to have like the best gas tank. You just need to understand where you need to stop, catch your breath, and then where you need to go again. And that's where I feel as though like now with like how quick wrestling is now, people think like, oh, you need really big tank. It helped to have a big tank because then you can push on those main event matches where you're going to be doing 25 minutes, 30 minutes, 40 minutes, an hour. I've seen people who are, the big lads and stuff like that, and they can go because they know when to go and then they know when to stop, and then they know right, this is good. There's going to be a big, spot here where it's a lot of running, it's a lot of, I'm going to lose a lot of my energy here. After that, it needs to be something really, we need to slow down here so we can all catch our breath and then we're ready to go again and stuff like that. So I would say the tank thing it's definitely important, but I feel as though people are running out of breath and getting breathless because they're just going 100 mile an hour. No one's stopping, no one's waiting. They're just straight into the next one again. And then, 5 minutes in, they're absolutely knackered, and they've still got another 10 minutes left.
That's cool. I wanted to ask that. I'm only going around the periphery with what it would take to become a wrestler. Yeah, I only know certain things, don't I? So that was good to hear that. And I'm sure
there's a couple of times where I've been in there, and so when it's like the comeback spot, that's probably going to be your biggest running spot. So, and I remember there's just some times where we've been doing stuff and then it comes to like the time where, there's a double down or something, and this is where the comeback's going to come from the babyface. And I've been lying there going, I'm absolutely knackered and we're going to have to run for a good 2 minutes here now. So I'm like that, lying down, but breathing, like sucking in all my breath, like trying to get as much air in it because I'm like, right, I'm going to have to get up now and we're going to have to run even faster now.
Cool, man. That's cool. I think now getting back into, obviously you trained and then 3 years later, 2011, first match. And as we know, the scene was very different, wasn't it?
Oh, yeah.
On a UK level. But you came in, you started having your first matches before the surge, but who were you getting in there with early on? Some of your memories of that.
So the first couple of people so my first match was actually it was a tag, and here's the story. So this is how it. So with my thing is because I'd been training for so long and stuff like that. I always wanted to help with the ring because it was like, you know what, I'm not the best at this, but I certainly want to look like I'm not, just skating by. I really want to look like I'm trying. So I'd be like taking the rings in, taking the rings out at training and stuff like that. And I remember Tish, Brian's daughter, pulled me aside and she was like, "Oh, would you be able to ref Butlins for us on Saturday?" I said, "Yeah, okay, yeah." And then obviously there's that spoken rule of even if you're not on the show, take your gear with you. So I just took my gear with me anyway, thinking I was just having, I was just refereeing. And as we were driving up, we got halfway there, and Tish turns to me. She goes, "Oh, have you got your gear with?" I said, "Yes." She goes, "Oh, good, because you're actually wrestling. You're not reffing." He said, "The only reason why I said you were reffing is because if I'd have told you were wrestling, you might have backed out." So I was like, "Well, that's not me. I wouldn't have backed out anyway." But I appreciate what she did. So then now it was like, all right, now I'm gonna have my first match here. So it was a tag. It was me and Ricky Knight against Frankie Sloan and Zak Knight.
Wow. So
that was kind of like my first. And the funny thing is, it was just when TNA was getting big. So we had this the 6-sided ring.
Yeah, absolutely.
And so my first match was in a 6-sided ring at Butlins. And I mean, it was a Butlins skyline as well. So you're looking about, people stop for the wrestling even at Butlins and stuff like that. So you're looking about 500, 600 people were there. So it was a big crowd from the first crowd. And the ring, it was so small, the ring, that like you could stand from like one post to one post and reach your arm out, and you could probably both kind of just touch your fingers. Like that's how close. So when you shot someone off, you by the time you pulled them, you're already at the other side. And it was, there's a video on there because I remember giving Zak Knight a bump, like a slam, and you could tell that the irons underneath don't move, but the wood is moving. So you can just see he's just bouncing off. It was horrible. It was horrible ring to be in. But yeah, and then that was my first match, and it was with Ricky Knight. He only just told me like the start and the end, and that was it. He said everything in between will be fine. I'll tell you. He was like, because at the end of the day, we're a tag team. So if anyone hears me telling you what to do, and he made it very clear. He was shouting because he was like, "Slamming Terry, slamming." So whatever Ricky would say, I'd just do. So we just say slamming, and I said, "All right, okay." I'd slam, and he goes, "Right now, pin him." And I go, "All right, okay, there we go." And then he'd go, "Right, I'll have him." And then we'll tag, and then he'd do his bit, and then he'd tag me back in, and then just from the corner, give him a suplex now. And it didn't look stupid because he was my tag team partner. It just looked like my tag team partner was telling me what to do. So then we obviously had the finish and stuff like that, which he was calling it while we're in there, because as he said, it doesn't look stupid. We're partners. We should be speaking to each other rather than not speaking at all. So that helped. And then the second match, funnily enough, was me and Sweet Soraya against Paige and Frankie Sloan. So within like the first week of me training, I'd already wrestled all the Knight family.
You can't buy that, can you?
Yeah.
And the Knights. And being in there with the Knights, I bet that was just incredible for you.
And they always looked after me, always. And I got really friendly with them really quickly, and they were always so nice to me. And I always appreciate that from the Knight family, because they really helped me that weekend. It really made me enjoyable. It was enjoyable for me, and it made me, because of how nice they were. I was just like, oh, you know what? If like everyone's like this will be great. If everyone's like this nice and this helpful, it was good. And then obviously down the line, obviously stuff goes, you meet people who aren't as nice as that and aren't as helpful, but you take the rough with the smooth, don't you?
I'd be remiss not to say about Frankie Sloan as well.
Yeah,
does not get enough credit, I don't think.
No,
on a European level as well. If we want to widen it, I think the guy. Look at the number of years he's been around the business.
Yeah. And that was All Star. It was like, and people always ask about All Star, and I'll say, and it's not me being biased or anything, because I feel like it's true. It's the best of the best go to All Star, and it's the biggest show. It's the biggest, say what people want to say about All Star, and about how the traditional wrestling. It still works now, and there's people like, let's say, like Gangrel. He won't work for anyone but Brian. And there's people out there, like big guys like that, who will literally not go anywhere else but Brian. And Brian will just get the absolute best. And there's some people who are on the indies, who are massive on the indies and have come along. And Brian said, no, I don't think he's good enough for it yet. And he hasn't booked him again and stuff like that. So it's hard to get into, and it is definitely the best of the best. And it's just all around, like everyone on that. If you're on an all-star card and you're a regular, or you're always getting booked, that you're like it. That's the top. You're in the A+ league there. And it's even with me, like, I'm not as good as like James and Spitty and Dean because of their experience level and compared to mine. But sitting down and being able to watch them every night, and I still do it now. Still watch them every night. I've probably seen hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of matches that have been on the card with for the simple fact I just want to watch and get experience and see how stuff go. And I've done that now for about 11 years now since I've been starting shows. So it's just the best place to be to learn, and I feel as though everyone should at least give it a go, and no one should turn a nose up at all-star wrestling, because people can say that type of wrestling's the old style. It's not. It still works to this day. I've still seen the roof get blown off places, and there wasn't much. It wasn't all this like killing each other and stage dives and stuff like that. It was just a good wrestling match with emotion being you catching the emotion of the crowd and stuff like that. And I just think it's still to this day. You can have all the good moves, but if you haven't gripped the audience, then you're dead in the water a little bit.
That's the thing I take away as a fan. You guys have got to be able to engage, haven't you?
Yeah.
Not to say the wrestling's secondary, but it's all got to intertwine, hasn't it?
Yeah, intertwines. Yeah, you're right there. Yeah, it's like a perfect chemical compound. It's like if you like a scientist with chemicals, he wants to make a certain chemical where you got to mix all these chemicals to get the correct one, and that's the same with wrestling. Is you got to take it. It's all got to be in there to make a perfect, match. And that's when you see, when you see these 5-star matches, that's the chemicals that they've reacted perfectly. And that's when you get these 5-star matches, and these matches that people rave about from, 10 years later or 20 years later and stuff like that.
Going back to obviously Brian Dixon, All-Star, you only have to look at how the Americans hold it in high esteem. Brian Danielson came over and did it. They love the old school wrestling, don't they?
Yeah.
These guys, they're very much, your core guys over in the States.
Yeah.
They're very complimentary about our style, aren't they?
Yeah, and I heard a podcast. It was Arn Anderson's podcast, and someone asked him a question. Is there anywhere that you regret that you never worked? And he said, I always wanted to work for Brian Dixon, because when he was working, like, he was hearing nothing but good things about Brian back then. So, you got people like Arn Anderson who was wanting to work there and stuff like that. So, yeah, it's, I feel as though I'm very lucky that that All-Star is literally just around the corner from me. Like, the training school is literally about a mile away from me. Yeah. So there was never any excuse for me, because there's people traveling 2 hours there. So as I seen it, it's like I've been given a really good, like, dealt a really good hand of cards here, as the training school is literally a mile away from my house. So I have no excuse not to go whatsoever. So I made sure that I was always there. And even now, I even go every time now, because it is only around the corner, and it's nice to just keep things sharp and stuff like that. There's people out there who've been probably working like 2 or 3 years, and they don't go to training schools anymore. They just think, well, I'm back on the shows now. I don't need to go training schools and stuff like that, which is just the worst mentality to have, because I love going in there and and you're working with all the new students and stuff like that. And you can go in, if you see something nice, you can go and try it and stuff like that. So I think it's a really good tool to have, especially being like how close it is as well.
Absolutely, absolutely. How many days a week? I know obviously restrictions are lifted and stuff like that, but under normal circumstances, how many days, how many hours a week are you training? I thought I'd like to ask that, just going off what you're saying.
So if the training school's open, it'd be open like twice a week. And the training would probably go on for about 4 hours. So it's like 8 hours training a week. But at the moment, because there's only just a small group of us doing it, just the people who want to, get our kind of ring shape back to normal. There's only, we're doing like maybe 2 or 3 hours, but we're doing that Monday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. So we're doing a lot at the moment. But we definitely need it, because the first day that we walked in, we started doing them drills. It wasn't pleasant. Where now it's starting to get to the point where we're like, all right, okay, this isn't hurting as much as it was at the first day that we started.
I bet there's a big buzz, isn't there, around the guys as well.
Yeah, and we're starting to see a lot of people come in to like just train and practice, because they've got shows coming. So there's people that I haven't seen for about a year, and when I'm starting to see everyone now and stuff like that. So it's nice to see everyone again and stuff.
Absolutely. I think coming away from All Star, where else have you worked over the years? And some of the guys you've got to pit your wits against in those promotions.
So I've done TNT, but I did TNT when I think it was probably like its second or third show, and then I never went back then. But obviously with how big it is, stuff like that. But I think Jay was like trying to sort of build his brand and stuff like that. And so now that, and back then I look completely different to what I do now. So I would like to give that another go. And there was First Class Wrestling, which is up in around Newcastle ways. They do a lot of shows there, and that's and I feel as though that's probably one of the best all-round shows as well, because I feel as though, because a lot of the guys who do that do First Class as well. Do Brian's do First Class, so it's exactly the same as what Brian does. It's and they get really good crowds in there. They get they're doing really big crowds, and it's the same. It's that. It's got the best there that do it, and the promoter is, he's really hard working in trying to get out the name of First Class Wrestling. He's relentless with his advertisements and stuff like that. I feel as though some promoters they go wrong because they're not promoting as much as they should. Where he just goes out and he's just everywhere trying to get that name out, and you can tell, because when he comes in, there's not one empty seat. Because he's gone out there, and he'll drive, hours and hours, and he'll be out 8 hours a day, every day until leading up to the show, just, putting posters out and putting advertisement out and stuff like that. He's relentless with it.
That's cool. I think I want to go back to you personally now. When you were growing up watching wrestling, maybe some guys, just a handful of guys, maybe that you gravitated to, jumped out the screen. All your attention was on them. Who were some of the guys?
So fair. Obviously, it was Hulk Hogan's your first one. That was when I was really little. I mean, there's people who say like they'll tell you like a time like, oh, this is how when I saw wrestling and I wanted to be a wrestler. I can't remember the first time I saw wrestling. For me, it was that far back that I've just always watched it for my whole life. I remember watching the Hulk Hogan cartoon and everything. It was that's how far back it was. I really can't remember the first time I watched it. It's just in my mind, I've always watched it. So there was Hulk Hogan, but then you grow up, and then the Attitude Era started then. So that's when, that's when it was the right age and at the right time to start watching wrestling. It was probably about 10, 11, something like that, watching Attitude Era, and mine was always The Rock. He was always my favorite when I was younger, but that's just like a kid thing. And then obviously when you grow up, I used to Like Eddie Guerrero was another one that I absolutely loved. And he was I liked him because I don't know, there's just something about like Eddie Guerrero that I liked. And it was only as when I grew up and started watching his matches again and go, well, do you know what? I feel as though I would probably liked him because he could wrestle. But back when I was younger, you know, how good he can wrestle was the last thing on my mind. I just wanted, you know, Latino heat and stuff like that. But he kind of tricked me because he was that good in the ring that like I must have just gravitated towards him because he was just so good.
It's the heel. It was the heel and the face with him.
Yeah.
Just that's in itself being able to do that, to have the knowledge, you know, the presence of mind, and so sad that we lost him when we did, because he had loads of great matches in the time.
Oh, he did, yeah. And it's crazy now to think, because I remember watching wrestling and I never used to compare sizes of people. Obviously, if like someone went in with Kane when I was younger, I was like, oh well, obviously because Kane's big. But I didn't realize just how small Eddie was compared to even like people like, you know, like Perry Saturn and Hardcore Holly and stuff like that. He was really, really small, but it'd never come across on the telly. It would never translate. It would never look like he was smaller than anyone. He just looked big like everyone else.
How about matches, maybe from off the top of your head, matches that you really enjoyed?
So I always, and the funny thing, it's really good because I watch all the old Attitude Era stuff now, like just like every so often. So I've got like a couple of like there's matches where I go, oh, do you know what, that was really good. I used to like what Jericho and Benoit used to do, and I was always I do like the wrestling side of things, but I like the main events. I like those matches where there's got a lot on the line, and you know, Rock and Austin always used to be like matches that I always used to really like watching. And but I always used to like watching Dean Malenko. It was just something about Dean Malenko that I really liked. It was just, I don't know, I liked the way he looked and everything like that. And he wasn't really as chatty or anything like that, but I don't know, there was just something about Dean Malenko that I just thought he was really good. Like, it was the little things he used to do, like, you know, we'd shoot someone off with a headlock and then rub his ear, like, and just little things like that. And that's when, now looking back, when I'm watching back at them, it's little things like that. I go, Joe, what? That's so good, because everyone's not doing that. You know, he really made you believe that he was wrestling, and everything was either like given, you know, it was irritating him or something. He was never, his arms were never down on the side. He was always doing something. Even when he's waiting for someone to hit him, he's always doing something.
Absolute ring general.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And you know, he going in now. Look him. He was with WWE in a producer role, and now in AEW. What a wealth of knowledge! What a wealth of knowledge for these young guys. You'd just be like sponge.
Yeah, and I don't understand why these writers who are WWE and stuff like that, I don't understand why they just don't let like people like Dean Malenko put the match together. You know, like let the writers build the story to get him in the ring, and then let the people who have done it, who've been in those type of situations, then do the matches. I feel as though, like, yeah, you've got like your match producers now, where, you know, a veteran will sit down with two guys and book the match together. But the producers probably got like a couple of things that he's been told, right? These things need to be in this match. So now he's got to work these like 4 things that he's been told by a writer to put in the match, where realistically they should have said, right, we really like this to be the outcome of this match, or we really want it to carry on next, or we're building up to a cage match. How would we build this match up to have a screwy finish, where the next match, if we make it a cage match, is not going to look stupid? That we're just making a cage match out of nowhere. There needs to be a reason why we're having a cage match. And I feel as though definitely, you know, you look at the people who are doing the producing and stuff now, like, they'll know how to do all that. They've been around everywhere. They've probably been around every territory in America. They'll know exactly what you need to do to get the fans come back to see a second match, and to make, you know, you can put him in this, you know, it could be a hardcore match, or it could be a tables match. They'll know how to get to that point of, right, we want it to be, we want the last match at a pay-per-view to be a table match. How are we going to lead up to that? And have that, and I feel that Demon Link would definitely know that, and all of them would probably know.
In terms of WWE, AEW, do you watch much of it currently? Do you manage to watch it, or do you stay away from it?
I keep my ear to the ground, but I like to watch wrestling, and it teaches me something. So my wrestling that I watch now is either like, I mean, the Attitude Era stuff. I mean, that's just me. That's just my that's just my guilty pleasure of watching that. I don't sit down and go, oh, I really want to watch a really good, hard hitting wrestling match. I'm going to sit down and watch the Attitude Era. No, that's just nostalgia reasons of why I watch that. It reminds me of like when I was a kid and stuff like that. If I really want to watch good wrestling, I'll probably put on some New Japan, because I've got the New Japan World thing, so I like to watch that. And I make it a habit of watching at least one World of Sport match a day, because in my mind, I'm on the lines of, I watched, wrestling my whole life, and then I got to training. So when I got in there, I knew how to hook a suplex, I knew how to pick up for a slam, and knew how to, do a DDT. And I kind of knew how you hit the ropes and stuff like that, because I'd seen it hundreds of times, and you're always going to pick up on them stuff. Obviously, then you have to put it into practice, and you have to get good at that. So in my eyes, I'm like, well, if I watch one World of Sport match every day, it's going to sink in of how of me learning the stuff that they're doing. So that's how I look at it, because when you get taught to training, you're locking up and they're telling you, like, here's your footwork and this how you do this, how you do that. Watch a World of Sport match and you can throw all out the window. Just make it look like a wrestling match, and you've got it, rather than like you're worrying about your footwork or like where your feet are and stuff like that. And you're worried, oh, am I holding this right and this, that, and the other. If you ever watch any of them, like, different wrestlers held like the wrist lock and a headlock differently. So some would hold like, a headlock where they're not hooking their hands like this, they're hooking it under the arm, or they just snatch it like this. And so it's nice to see different ways of other wrestling holds being applied and stuff like that, especially in a World of Sport type of situation, rather than like, like a WWF Attitude Era situation, because I know there's going to become a time where I'm going to have to put my British wrestling, what I know, into practice in the ring. So I feel as though I'm going to learn more from a World of Sport match than I am from, watching, Hardcore Holly against Test. So that's how I look at it.
Absolutely. I think closing out now, Tyson Taylor's veteran tips for young budding people that want to get into wrestling. Few tips, because you've been in and around it since 2008 now, so you've got a wealth of experience, wealth of knowledge. Just a couple of tips, and maybe like etiquette. I hit this home to people a lot when I speak to you guys. The etiquette's not there from people.
No, definitely not.
I've noticed that, like.
And that's not me having a dig at anyone, but when I first started business, I was training and I was going to shows and I would carry people's bags. I was carrying, guys' bags. I was getting water for them. If they needed me to go to the shops for them, I was going to the shops for them. I was always there to help with the ring. No one should feel too big to put a ring up. I was doing it. I remember I was doing big league wrestling when they were running, and they'd have a ring crew there. And I would just say, oh, would you like help with the ring? Because even though they've got a ring crew there and they're getting paid to do it, come on, I love doing the ring. I think it's a good thing to have. And I feel as though if you're too good to do to do the ring, especially when you're like, I'm 2-3 years in, everyone should know how to put a ring up, and everyone should know it that well that if push comes to shove, you're in a situation where none of the guys are there, they're late, the show's the show starts in an hour, they're stuck in traffic, you and one other guy are there with the ring. You need to be able to put that ring up, because you just never know what's going to happen. So always make sure you do the ring always learn your basics before you start anything else. I've seen people come in and they're like, oh, I've got this MMA background, so I'm going to try and incorporate that MMA style with my wrestling style. I'm like, all right, okay, we'll get the wrestling style first sorted, get that sorted, and that'll take years. It's not going to be overnight. It's going to take years. Then start adding your flary stuff in. But if you don't know the basics, then you're dead in the water already. And it's all nice having all these, I've done all these, but if you need your basics to understand how it all works and then start springing all that in. So that's what I would say. And then always just try and be just a hard working one in there. And that's just like a testament to me is I was never the best, but I always made sure that I would do the ring always. If the ring needed to be doing, I was there, and I was always helping, and I was always grabbing stuff. I was always moving stuff for people because I knew there was going to become a time in a conversation where I'm not in the car and there's all the veterans and they're going to go, oh, what do you think about that Tyson guy? And like, oh, he's like fairly on, like, oh, he's rotten, but he helps with the ring. So, and I can tell you now that when you're starting off and you're rotten, yeah, you're not gonna have any bad matches, but you're learning anyway. So that's they can let that go. But if you're having bad matches and you're them being useless and not helping people out, you're not going to last on these. You're not going to last on a team of guys because, especially with Brian, sometimes you got 3 shows a day. You need, and we don't have any ring crew. It's us. So it's the guys. Whoever's on that show, you're putting that ring up. So they need people to, and especially on the show on a day where we've got 3 shows, you've got 1 show at 12, 1 show at 3, and 1 show at 5. You need to be in. You need to have built the ring up, done a match, and out straight to the next one before the next show starts. And there's times where we're getting in there and we're moving the ring, and the queue is there's the line outside for waiting for the show. And I've seen a couple of people flap on that. I've seen a couple of people go home because they can't hack that. So just make sure you're trying, and everyone, and this is literally for everyone, you need to make sure you go in the gym. If you're not trying to even if your look is not to be like a big muscle guy, just train, just lift some weights, because you're gonna have to pick people up, and if you can't pick them up and you drop them and you hurt them, then you're gonna get that reputation of being the guy that drops people and he's not strong enough. You need to make sure that you're at least trying to put some strength on you. Even if you're not one of these people who want to be the body guy, you need to be lifting some weights just so your strength can get up, because you don't want to be known as the guy who can't lift people and stuff like that. And make sure everything's all rounded. Make sure you understand, if there's one style that's not necessarily what you like, learn it anyway. It's nice to have. It's nice to be like an all-rounder for everyone, I think. But if I was going to say anything, just get your basics down. Get them down first. And it's not easy. It's hard. But nothing in this world that's worth having is easy to have. So, if you're not in it to like be really big and successful, then, why are you here then? My aim is to be massive. I want to be absolutely huge on the independent circuit. I want to be on the front of all the posters. I want the nice contracts from WWE and the tryouts and stuff. So, but obviously that will come in time. Obviously, when everything starts opening back up, that's when I'm start doing it. But I just run really hard. I get up at 3 o'clock in the morning every morning to train for the gym, because I look at successful people and they're getting up early in the morning and they're training. So that's my mentality job. Just have a really hard working mentality, and you can't go wrong. And listen to people, listen to what the veterans are saying. They know best. Even if you don't necessarily agree with it, just listen to it. Take it into account. If you don't agree with what they say, try and break down what they were saying. And if you still can't understand what they're saying, well, then maybe you need to ask them again what they mean. But trust me, I've never heard a veteran, tell me some, but, they've probably told me some bad advice, but, it's not bad advice. It's just different, it's just different opinions on things. So take everyone's opinion in for account rather than just the ones that you like. And don't ask, if you want to ask a veteran to give you advice on a match, don't ever ask a veteran, did you like my match? Because 9 times out of 10, or I'm going to say 10 times out of 10, they're going to say they didn't like it. But if you say, what did you watch my match? Yes. Is there anything I can improve on? Right now we can start talking, and then they'll tell you. But if you walk up to them and go, oh, do you like my match? One, you've asked the wrong question there, because if you knew, your match is going to be horrible. Whatever you think in your mind, you know, your matches are going to be horrible at first. My match was awful. You're absolutely. My ass got chewed out loads of times after the match. People were saying I was a shit and this, that, and the other. And there's another thing. Don't run away. I've been shouted at loads of times, and there was a couple of times where I'd be driving back home after being my arse chewed out, going, I just want to quit. But I'd just go to bed and wake up the next day and I said, right, let's get better. Let's, you know. And now those guys who would chew my ass out now are now my friends. So it's a slow process, and it's hard, and it's upsetting, and your heart will get broken at times, but just keep grinding. If you really want to do this, it should be the easiest thing in the world.
Tyson Taylor's tips there, veteran tips, well encapsulated. Do you know what I like about when you're saying about doing the ring? You're wrestling in that ring. So it's full circle. You respect the ring because you're wrestling in it. I like the fact, I'd take away from that, you know, you're not there necessarily to set it up, but you still do it. You're paying your dues, and great. This is great for the youngsters. What you've just said. Yeah.
It's like so let's say you're an electrician. Does someone come and bring your tools to your workspace and set them all out for you, ready, and set all your gear that you need up? No, you do that yourself. It's like a painter. There's a painter. The painter doesn't get someone to put the canvas on the thing for him, put his paint down for him. He does that. And if you're putting the ring up and you start, you know, because there's bits of the ring that, you know, there might be like a board up, or there might be some more padding somewhere, or there might be, you know, a hole in like the wood that no one's realised. If you're around the ring at the start of the match and you feel something, you can go, right. Because there's loads of times where someone's come back and said, the board's broke, or bottom left side, don't be doing any bumps in that corner, or stay clear of it. So, and they only found that out because the people who've done it have done the ring, because, you know, they've picked up a board and it's been, you know, broken. But, you know, what are we going to do? We've got a show in, you know, an hour. So you just put the board on anyway, put all the stuff over, and then everyone knows, right, you don't go in that corner then. But, you know, I've never seen, you know, a ring crew set up a ring and then come back to everyone and say, oh, you know, the bottom left, or there's a board come up, or, you know, watch these ropes or stuff like that. You need to learn that yourself, because you need to learn when these things are going to go as well. So if you're, you know, in the ring and you're rolling around and you feel a board, you know, that board feels a bit weird, you just let someone know. But if you're not setting rings up and don't know how it feels when you're setting them stuff up, then you won't be able to pick out those problems. And then if you're not being able to pick out them problems, and then you go in the ring and you're having a match and you don't know and you hurt yourself, you know, that's your own fault. You should know what's underneath it all.
Absolutely. Right. Tyson Taylor, where can the viewers and listeners find you in terms of the socials? Do a little bit of plugging. You got to start plugging, because the show's left and right now. Yeah.
So it's mainly on Instagram. It's Tyson Taylor 101, and then on Twitter it's @Cruel2, which is TOO, and just my Facebook is just Tyson Taylor as well. And I'll be probably putting up a lot of videos and stuff like that. I do a lot of promos with people. I'd put a nice promo together for SWW, and once other shows start asking me to do stuff like that. And that's with if there's any promoters listening or anything like that, I can talk. So if you want me to sell anything, just let me know. I can send videos over, because that's something I haven't really had a chance to do, is do a lot of promos. But I've done a lot in the ring with Brian and stuff like that, but I've never done it, you know, face to camera and showing people what I can do, talking on a mic and stuff like that. So that's what would be like, you know, to say, if there's anything like that needed, just give me a shout.
Perfect. My guest today on Stu's Wrestling Podcast, it is UK wrestling veteran Tyson Taylor. Thank you very much for coming on today, man.
No, cheers, Stu. That was great. Cheers, mate.
Big thank you to Powered 4 TV for putting the episodes up on the on-demand service there. Big thank you to John Scott and Rich Crowhurst for all the support. Really appreciate it week in, week out. Nothing's ever a problem. Also, we're doing Powered 4 TV Big Fight Weekly, the MMA and boxing show with my cousin Rich and John. I've put on these first. It's been fantastic with that. Thank you to Chris Dutton again, as always, for the superb editing. I couldn't do this without him. And fantastic job once again. Thank you to Mike Angus for the intro, as always, to the show. You can find the Stu's Wrestling Podcast merch at WrestleMerchCentral.com. There is loads of stuff, lots of different items that you can get. Mugs, hats, face coverings, t-shirts, hoodies, even the new varsity jacket with embroidered Stu's Wrestling Podcast logo on it. Big thank you once again to Dean and the team for listing my products on there. Great work, and we will see you soon for the next episode of Stu's Wrestling Podcast.